Okay, good morning. It's great to see so many familiar faces, and then also to be able to put faces to voices that I've had many conversations with on the phone, and then to meet new people within the SI community. Before we started, earlier this morning, I was speaking to a couple of people, and we were reflecting upon the international conference that was held in Chicago 3 years ago. And Kathy and Brett were both there, along with some of our team from Fullerton, and then I believe maybe one or two other campuses from the CSU system. And I have to say, it's pretty exciting. It's pretty cool to see 21 out of 23 campuses that are represented here today. Is that correct, Brett? So I think we've gone to tremendous lengths to grow this support program within the CSU system. And now we've been recognized by UMKC for our work, not just Fullerton, but also Fresno and many of your campuses too. So again, it's great to be part of this community, or what we always say, an SI family. Oh, I'm Trista O'Connell. Hi. I'm the Assistant Director of the SI program here alongside Mark Filowitz and Rochelle Woods. Okay, so as you all know, SI is an academic support program that provides peer-facilitated sessions to students in historically challenging courses. It's not a remedial program. It targets the course, not the student. Instead of having a tutor or a TA or a GA linked to a course, or helping the students, I should say, we have an SI leader, as many as you know. An SI leader is different from a TA or a GA in that they're there specifically to help the students. That is their first priority. Even though they are going to have a strong working relationship with faculty, they're not there to grade assignments or exams or quizzes or anything like that. At the same time, they're very different from tutors, in that if you think about a tutoring session, what dictates the nature of a tutoring session is what the student brings to the table. So the tutor has no idea as to what the material they're going to be dealing with, the questions or the problems, until the student literally sits down in front of them and says, I don't understand my math assignment, or please help me with this writing prompt. With supplemental instruction, it's the SI leader who's the one who's facilitating the sessions, but at the same time, they're the ones who are creating different types of games and activities and worksheets that they're going to use in their SI sessions. And so supplemental instruction is all about collaborative learning. At the same time, with this collaborative element, it's also an instructor-free zone. We at Fullerton follow the UMKC model. I've been certified through the program along with Rochelle Woods and a couple of other people on our campus, We target bottleneck and also key gateway courses. Our SI leaders receive initial as well as ongoing support and training throughout the semester. We have our senior leaders who are actually an integral part of that training. They actually are the ones who create a lot of the activities, and they also facilitate them. So our program truly is collaborative in nature, and it is SI at the core. Another element that we pride ourselves on at Fullerton is that, again, it is SI at the core, in that it is a true collaborative a true collaboration between academic affairs and student affairs. And that's really why we've been successful with our program, in that we're not operating out of a silo. It's not just out of student affairs, but we're constantly in communication with one another. And that's how we've been able to not only get faculty and administrative buy-in, but also be able to grow and sustain our program throughout the years.
Okay, so in 2007, we began the program in a small way with a couple of faculty and Rochelle Woods. So we have a model at Fullerton where we have student affairs assistant deans that are actually in each of the academic colleges, which gets a great partnership going. So Marty Bonsang, a professor of mathematics, Sean Walker, professor of biology, took an interest in SI because all of us that are involved in STEM have tried many things over the years that we tried to make work, and we found that this was something that might work. So a few people from the campus got involved with SI, and we started out with about 7 different sections seven courses that we were looking at: calculus and the first course for biology majors. We grew the program steadily, and I have to say that it was my colleague Marty Bonsang say we go around with a tin cup. Anyone that had a grant on the program, at one point I had a test up grant from a STEP program from NSF. We donate money. One year the college supplied $100,000 to keep it growing. But basically what the lesson that all of you need to recognize is that anything that's going to stick at your campus is going to start with faculty. If the faculty are not interested, it's going to die before it reaches the desk, okay? So make sure you understand that. So in 2009, Trista, who at the time was working at our University Learning Center, met up with us. We're a large campus, and sometimes we have no idea what other people are doing. Probably none of you encounter that. But it was really kind of funny almost, because it was like the University Learning Center met the folks over at NSM doing SI, and it was like 2 people who were ready to get married, each one thinking the other one had money, where in fact neither one of us had any money. Okay, so it was a partnership that began because of interest in doing the same things, but necessarily not funded in a central place. And that's when we started to grow. Okay, so in 2013, through the Chancellor's Office initiative, we were able to get a fair amount of money to centralize and institutionalize the program. So in order to get to this level, you understand, we're talking about 6 or 7 years of data collection. So one of the things you'll hear throughout the day from anyone talking about this, it's really key that you collect the data as you go along. Now, I've been involved in both industry and academia and administration for a long time. I have never found an administrator who is against a program that makes them look good. Okay? If you can put data in front of your college and campus administrators to show them the impact that these type of things can have, and this is not the only thing that's out there, of course, they will be able to buy in. Okay, we're all hearing about GI 2025. We all know about the achievement gap. All of us are pushing in the same direction, and we have something here that really works. And once campus administrators realize that, they will help the faculty and staff who are trying to promote the program. So in 2014, we got some more funding through a student success initiative. Now, this is an interesting program on our campus where our student association, our ASI, decided that they were interested in having a student fee that was charged on top of their normal fees, but they wanted to tell us how to spend the money. Okay, that was the condition. They will let you charge us a little bit more money, but we want to tell you how we want to spend it. Well, guess what? They wanted more SI. That was one of the things they said they have to have. So you know that all of us can talk to our students, and we love them until we're blue in the face, but nothing's as good as students telling students that this is the way to go. So at this point in time, we had students so invested and so bought into the program that they were willing to take a big portion of that chunk of money and put it into the SI program. So the Center of Excellence was established in 2015. Our job pretty much is to help a lot of you in the room. We've had to come to our campus. Is that Maureen back there? And Maureen's back there who actually turned me on to SI, so I have to acknowledge her. So what we found is that in forming a Center of Excellence allowed us to provide some of this information to a lot of you in the room who've come to visit us, or we went out to visit to either proselytize about the program or at least educate you on what we were up to that made us successful at Fullerton. So in last academic year, we had about 20,000 students who had access. Of course, we wish they all would show up, but they all don't. And we had about a quarter of those folks actually show up and take advantage of SI. So we do have to track this, and very, very carefully that you all should be thinking about it. And this actual academic year we're into, we now have 40 courses, 14 departments, and 5 colleges. It used to be just the STEM colleges, 130 SI leaders, 161 course sections that are supported by our peer mentors. So it's grown from 7 sections to this. Yeah. So we try to have, and you see up front there on the left is Marty Bonsang, and on the right, Sean Walker, two of the original, faculty that really invested themselves into the program. And we tried to combine some social activities with our SI leaders. This was in 2014 at my house in front of the garage, okay? I'm over there on the far left. And it was a pretty good group. And that was then, and this is now.
So this is us now. We don't even sit at Mark's house anymore. So we actually have our year-end event on campus, but this just gives you the size of the scope that we're working with. And because our program is larger, we've had to put things in place to help with the infrastructure that was mentioned earlier. So as far as we have our leaders, we have senior leaders, we have many different people that work with this program to support it. So it's just not done by the three of us that are up here. There's a lot of collaboration and communication across the divisions, across the campus. This next slide actually just gives you some ideas of some of the courses that we do support. What Brett had mentioned earlier in regards to targeting the bottleneck classes, targeting the classes where there is a lower pass rate. We've moved from just the STEM to also include other disciplines, which we found the word has spread on our campus. Once students find that supplemental instruction is something that will help them pass, they tell their friends tell their friends. We've been able to get funding and support through that, but then we've also looked at growing the program to really reach out and figure out where can we make the most difference. So this slide just shows you some of the samples of the classes that we do and the number of sections in the courses that we do cover. Again, from 5 of the colleges, so it's not just the STEM, but it also includes things like the history 1 to A and B, kinesiology, ISDS. In addition to the students speaking to each other, it's also faculty speaking to each other, really promoting and seeing that the SI has been something that's made a difference in their courses. And so now we're at the point where we do have faculty and students coming to us asking if we can expand it to their college. So communication is consistent. Support networks. So as we were saying earlier, this is definitely a collaboration between the divisions. These are just some of the pictures of the people that work with the program, supported by both our provost and vice president for academic affairs and our vice president for student affairs, in addition to faculty members, administration that are members of our implementation team. So again, if you're emerging, look to see those resources from other places. Support from top down has really helped us be very successful on our campus. Now let's talk about some data.
Okay, so prior to institutionalization, so we're looking at 2012, 2013, only about 2,500 students had access to SI-supported courses. Last year, 2015-16, we had over 21,000, as Mark mentioned. If you look across at the numbers here, you can see that consistently students who did participate in supplemental instruction did earn a higher course grade than those who did not participate. Also, the course completion rates were also much stronger than those of the non-participants. In summer 2015, we actually piloted SI. I have to be honest with you, when, and this was actually through the SSI, through the SSI funding that we received, students wanted to have SI during summer session. I honestly thought there's no way students are going to go. They're going to class, they're sitting in class lecture for 3 to 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. They're not going to want to go to SI and sit for another hour or two. And I was proven wrong. In this case, I enjoyed being proven wrong. We actually saw 61% of our students participated in supplemental instruction. And the first year we offered it in summer, it was a full course grade. Actually, that number is, you should have the correct numbers in your book. If I'm looking, oh no, that's correct. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong line. So that was pretty exciting. And actually the students wanted additional time with their SI leaders, so we increased the amount of time of the SI session, so that was fantastic. We will be talking a little bit more about the data in our afternoon session, but of course, Tasha's going to be running a whole session just on data, so you can also speak with her. Our afternoon breakout session, this is a word from our sponsor, so we will be talking about these additional components. So again, starting from grassroots, if you're just starting out or if you already have an established program, we've all encountered various challenges along the way, whether it's talking about how to find usable space or it's getting faculty buy-in. We're going to be covering many of those issues and how we've been able to eliminate them. One of the key things we've been able to do that has helped us is, again, establish various relationships across campus. We've been able to do this through the creation of what we refer to as the implementation team, which Rochelle spoke about, where we actually have administrators, we have staff, we have our faculty, we have department chairs along with our senior leaders, and we have everyone come together to speak about the various needs of our campus and ways in which that we can make SI work for them. So we're going to be talking more about that. We'll also be talking about our faculty liaison component, which has also helped us grow the department as well as maintain that dialogue, that channel, those various channels of communication between student affairs and academic affairs. So these are just some of the things that we'll be talking about that have enabled us to grow and sustain our program throughout the various years. So please come check us out this afternoon. And if you have any questions for us, I believe we have some time, so we can answer them now, or if you'd like to address them later in the afternoon. At the same time, please access our website. We have a lot of, we feel, great information out there. And then our contact information is there as well.
Any questions for the Fullerton group?
Hi, hey, Rochelle. Mark, I just want to know when the old guy is coming out. I just see a young person there.
Well, thank you. But, you know, my Social Security card says something different.
Right. But the question really, and this is for Trista, Rochelle, and you too, Mark, how important would you say your roles in the administrative roles and support services to get the faculty involved, to get the organization? What are some key, I don't know, messages that you gave to your colleagues to help get them on board for SI?
Okay, I'll speak from the academic affairs side. I was in the position of associate dean, but I've never found stuff from the top down working very well in my college. And, you know, we're from the government, we're here to help, you know, the feeling, Jerry. Yeah. It's a situation where we had two of the faculty really, and Rochelle at the time, and Trista from the University Learning Center, really supporting what we were doing, and again, providing data to show people that, hey, this thing might be working. Of course, when you have n equals, you know, 500, no one gets too excited. But when you get to n equals 20,000, people get more excited. And as the entire system started moving closer and closer towards the goals that we now call GI 2025, which is really not a new program, it's just a more focused program, people started to realize that, and particularly in the STEM area where I'm involved, that this actually works. You know, we found two things that work in STEM: undergraduate research and SI. There's other ways of providing that kind of message, but the idea was that the faculty were the ones that were really excited about it. And we had a lot of faculty that were very, very skeptical about it, a lot of questions about self-selection, a lot of questions about there were no peer-reviewed articles yet. And until you had the data to show them that, it was less convincing. But really what propelled it was when we started forming this union, as was said before, with student affairs. On our campus, it's a really big deal not to be isolated in your different division. And I found also that, from my perspective, to be able to push this program with more vice presidents didn't hurt. Okay, and as I said before, everyone realized this is a program where if they put in some resources, they can get some of the results that we've all been trying to achieve. Now, again, you know, there's always an issue of who's got the money. And, you know, everyone thinks they've got some money to do things. Money's getting more and more scarce, okay? We're not getting increases in our budgets. We're seeing things more difficult to do. But at the same time, you know, you can prioritize what's important to the campus. And if the people on top start to understand that this will help them achieve their goals, that they're reporting to their president, who's then reporting to the chancellor, suddenly they buy in. And I think you're seeing that happen in a number of campuses. But you got to make sure you understand it's a data-driven process. You can't go up there and say, I truly believe. You know, that's nice, but that's not going to convince anybody. So again, it's a question of having enough data, which means you don't start big, and we'll talk about this afternoon. You know, you build up over time, get the data you need, and once you have the data you need, you've got the information that you need to convince administrators. And then the money gets found because it helps achieve the goals that we're all trying to get to.
I think probably from the student affairs perspective, when we look at what our role is on campus as far as helping students be successful, the other piece that we've really tied into is the opportunity for student employment and how that contributes to student graduation and retention. So when we think about just the number of students that we've been able to employ, you know, show them those leadership skills, putting those leadership skills into practice from the student affairs perspective, I think has also been very critical to part of the reason we've been able to go out and show how this program has not only impact on the students in the academic perspective, but then also just their sense of belonging on campus as well.
And you've heard it said a couple of times, but stigmatizing students by saying you need remediation, I mean, that's not something that people appreciate. When you tell them, hey, it's a course that's very difficult, that lots and lots of people are having trouble with, it makes a whole lot of difference, particularly among first generation students, okay, who really don't necessarily feel part of your communities at your colleges until they feel that they're doing well. And we all know if they don't do well at first, they're very quickly going to find something else to do. Okay, so that's really important, that this targeting of courses, not targeting of students, is huge. Having the SI leaders actually go to the classes is also quite important, because that lets them know where each faculty person is in terms of their syllabus. Now, some of the resistance you get from faculty initially is, well, I didn't teach it that way. Okay, so, you know, I mean, to me, it's not a big deal. You know, if you're teaching someone how to do a buffer solution, I don't care which way you do it, as long as you know how to do it. So when you become a doctor or a nurse or somebody like that, you're not going to kill me. Okay? So the question is how to stimulate that type of thinking, which may not always be in line with what the instructor is doing, but it's really important you be up to date with where their syllabus is. So having these SI leaders, and by the way, all of us who've taught know, if you're going to teach, you better know the subject matter. So the SI leaders become more and more knowledgeable in the courses they already know very well. And many of them get very, very excited about what they're doing. And we have whole studies going on, I use grants and everything else, to look at the impact on the SI leaders themselves, which is phenomenal. And I'll let them speak to themselves later on. Well, questions? Yeah, over here.
So this may be a question better for the afternoon, but I'm just curious, because essentially you've talked about faculty, but as far as getting students, it sounds as though these aren't necessarily required as part of whatever course they're taking. So what's the messaging and incentive that you're presenting to students? Okay, so when we first started this, before students started telling students, what we would do is we would actually contact all the students, for example, taking calculus, to let them know that this is a service that's available to them. And to make them see, we'd show them some, you know, really quick graphs about here's with and without, the pass rate with, pass rate without. And we would go in there and actually proselytize. You know, we'd go in actually the first day of classes in some of these bottleneck courses, and we talk about these SI sections are available for you. It's voluntary, but we encourage you to do it, and here are the results. So in the beginning, it was sort of us pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. But it was good for a while until students started telling students, and then it really snowballed. And the hardest thing is keeping good SI leaders, because these kids, they graduate, you know.
So you guys have a very large program, which is amazing. But I'm curious, what are some of the methods that you use in order to keep all the SI leaders themselves connected with each other? Because at Fresno State, I really find, you know, the SI leaders can be some of our own greatest resources to helping us grow and maintain that quality. So what are some of the things that you guys do?
That's an excellent question. First of all, our senior leaders, we actually kick off the year, actually each semester, with a senior leader retreat. And we actually spend half the time focusing on leadership and mentoring skills. And then the second half of that is planning our 2-day training that we do with all of our SI leaders. And then we also start brainstorming different types of activities, outings that they do that in order to bring the leaders together throughout the semester. And so actually just last Friday, they went to a baseball game on campus. We've gone to an Angels game. We've gone to the beach. We've gone and had barbecues and sporting events at the local park. They did pumpkin carving around Halloween. And so we try to get it, because it is very difficult with 130 leaders. Obviously, with 130 leaders, it is virtually impossible for me to meet with them as a team once a week. And so that's how we break them up into the different departments. They meet with their faculty liaisons, which we'll speak about later this afternoon. I also meet weekly with the senior leaders, and that's where we actually, again, talk about what's working or what challenges they may have in different departments or with different leaders. And then we also go back, or they go back to their departments and share that information. And so we have all these constant connections, these threads between myself, the senior leaders, the faculty liaisons, and then all of our various leaders. So we try to bring everyone together as much as possible. At the end of the semester, we do have, in December, we always have a gathering, a celebration in our student union. We go bowling and we play pool and we get pizza and we celebrate. And then in May, we always have a reception, celebration, and award ceremony.
Not in my house.
Yeah, we don't fit in Mark's backyard anymore. Yes, another question?
Yes, I'm curious about the supplemental instructors themselves and how, if they're attending the course at the same time, how does that impact their time to degree, and how do we do? Is there some strategy to scheduling that occurs in order to make this work? Just any information on that?
Yes, our SI leaders are actually required to go to class. We actually pride ourselves in the fact that our SI leaders attend the associated course about 99% of the time. Obviously, occasionally they do get sick. We actually pay them to go to class and hear that lecture again, even though they may be an SI leader for that class for the past 3 or 4 semesters. They've heard the lecture, they could give it themselves. It is still critical that they are there. First of all, so they're hearing the material the same way in which the students are receiving that information. At the same time, that their visual presence is a reminder to the students that they are there to help them. And also, when the instructor is lecturing, they can always turn to their SI leader. So for example, if they're throwing something out to the students and the class just goes flat, it goes quiet, they can turn to their SI leader and say, hey, Nick, aren't you going to be covering this later in your SI session? And then the students see that exchange. They see that the instructor, their professor, is trusting this person over here, their peer, with their information in them, and so they are more inclined to go to SI. So it's incredibly important that they do go to class.
Yeah, I'm more asking about the SI as a student and their progress toward degree. Does this have do they have course conflicts? Do we have scheduling that accommodates that? How do we keep them on track while they're
Okay, I apologize about that.
No problem.
I heard that other element of it too, but they actually receive priority registration. When we're interviewing them, we ask them about how many units they're carrying. If they have an additional campus or off-campus job, we ask them about their time commitment, if they're involved with different types of organizations and clubs on campus, because they are overachievers, and so we do take all of that into consideration. The student? I thought.
Okay, so we're talking about the SI leaders, so I think you meant the students themselves. So I guess you can say that it does take additional time, but how much more time does it take to keep repeating the same thing over and over? You know, as many of you, I sit on my academic senate, and we do all these wonderful things to help our students, you know, like we allow them to do with these forgiveness on repeatable courses up to a point. We give them a number of W's they can take. If on my campus first semester, if you get a WU because you don't show up, it turns to a W. You blow out all your W's in your first semester. It's terrific. You know, we're doing this stuff to help students, but it doesn't necessarily help. So when you talk about the time element of the students that are involved in SI, there's 2 different ways that we do it. Okay, when you're talking about math classes, when you have typically about 30 students in a class, you can actually sort of align the times that they go to their classwork. You get their schedules, you can work it out. When you're talking about some of the big science classes, like we have our largest is 240 students in a lecture that break up into 10 lab sections. Okay, 240 students are not going to be able to come to the same place at the same time, and nor do you want them to come to the same place, so they can drop in to our SI center for their particular course, or biology in this case, for what they need. Now, that means you're not going to always get the same students with the same leaders all the time, but that's another case where it's really important to keep track of how many show up and who shows up for that data collection. It's really, really important. So again, you have to weigh, if I pass the classes and move on in my major, particularly hierarchical majors like in engineering, computer science, or in natural sciences, mathematics, where if you don't get on that first rung, you're definitely not going to make it out of here in even 6 years. Okay, so if we talk about the time element in terms of getting them to that next step, we think the overall time savings is great. But to revert back to the SI leaders, one more point I want to make, and this is an outcome of GI 2025 where we're collecting all this different data. We have shown on our campus that the students who work on campus, because we're largely a commuter campus, the students who work on our campus graduate sooner, shockingly, right? I mean, me, I don't leave my parking spot, okay, I get that. But for the students that work off campus, they're spending a lot of time doing other things. If they're working on campus, they have a time to do some study time, their homework, et cetera, and it actually helps their graduation rates. So it's a trade-off that students have to choose in terms of the time they spend. You know, time management is always a big deal with our student populations. But overall, they will finish sooner. They won't repeat courses over and over again. So I think it saves them time. But again, it's voluntary. Can't make it. Sorry.
I actually have two questions. One is, in terms of getting students to get involved, I understand the word of mouth makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering also how courses, I understand courses that are bottlenecked are selected, but is there word of mouth in terms of faculty self-selecting and saying this class might not be on the radar, but it is a class that is a bottleneck for a small major, and whether or not there's resources available for faculty to just kind of self-select?
Yeah, I actually received an email yesterday from an instructor, and what will happen is the word of mouth is out there, and so they're asking exactly that question. Our budget is intended to support the bottleneck courses, and so I'll get that list from the instructor or from the department chair, and I'll send it to our IR department, and then they'll run the numbers on that. Occasionally, if we do, you know, what I'll do after that is if it doesn't meet the criteria or if it's just under, I'll make an appointment to meet with the department chair and the instructor who's brought that to my attention, and we'll have a longer, lengthier conversation about how we could possibly support. And if we do have extra funding available, we do occasionally run a pilot in that. And space is an issue.
Well, that was actually my second question.
Yeah.
Is for many of us, we actually don't have any extra space, and so as the program grows, that problem arises: is where are you going to put these sections?
Nobody has extra space, okay? But when back in the good old days when we had some money in my college, I built SI rooms for each one of our departments. But now that we have something the size that we've got now, it's kind of catch as catch can. And that's sort of, I think, more limiting than the funding for us at this point is the space and scheduling of these SI sessions. And we've also reached that same problem. And you can go to your scheduling office and they try to get you into places that are vacant, but they're usually not at the times that the students can make it. So it's a problem. When you reach that, get to that size and then worry about the problem.
I think the other thing that we did mention is the fact that sometimes if we find that SI is not a good fit after running it for several semesters, we have had conversations about, okay, we didn't get the student attendance that we thought we'd have, or we're not seeing as great impact between the participants versus non-participants. We have taken some of the courses off of the roster too.
About that. So in that vein, one thing I was talking to Eric about before, we tried this in some of the GE math courses that students take just to get math out of the way so they can move on with their lives. They don't care if they get a D. They just want to get out, okay? So if you offer it in courses that are largely GE, you know, our Math 110, our Math for Poets, it's not going to work because those students aren't motivated to do well in that type of course. So again, with a little bit of trial and error, we found out where it works and doesn't work. We're getting a lot more interest, as you see, from different colleges. We were very surprised to see that things like history and philosophy, which have high failure rates, got a lot of play on SI. It really worked. And again, those faculty came to us because their dean had heard about it at all our Council of Deans meetings, saying, hey, what's with this stuff? Go check it out. And they came and asked us about it, and it's working.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it's back over to Brett.
Stop there for now. Yeah.
So if you have additional questions, come check us out this afternoon. Okay.
So first, help me thank Fullerton, the team. And we could probably continue for a long time with questions, but we kind of wanted to limit that because, of course, you have their breakout session. They will be in units. You'll take a right at the front desk over here behind this wall. You heard them mention 2007, so you can probably do the math. I don't think they mentioned they have a 10-year celebration coming up on May 5th, so that's amazing to be at that point. You know, with the Fullerton folks and all they've done to, you know, help other campuses as a center of excellence, hosting them or going to, in some cases, some of the other campuses, they've always done so willingly with open arms and with the whole team, what you see here and beyond, hosting those folks, which has been great. And that's been common across the SI community, that I find these folks not, you know, figuring that, well, I've got plenty to do at my campus. I'm doing my thing. I've got a lot to focus on. I figured it out. You'll have to kind of figure it out on your own. There's been this great community of sharing for some of the issues and some of the questions that have come up so far. So that's been really great, and we want to continue that going. The other thing, we've had great questions here. We'll get into break in just a second. If we could have folks just say your name and campus real quick as you get on the mic, that'll help the community within the room, but also in Zoom, just to know who's speaking. So name and campus as you go on mic. We'll take a break. We're as scheduled. We'll meet back in here at 10:45. You can top yourselves off out there back at the breakfast section, and we'll see you soon.